Okay. Ready?
All right.
Okay. Go ahead. You gonna introduce?
Good afternoon, and welcome everyone. We're here at the National Barbershop in Washington D.C., number 8 on Marble Street, Southwest. And we're here today with a housing specialist, Carissa Span with Fresh Start Housing Services. And so we're here to talk about a couple things. Housing in the District of Columbia, affordable housing issues, rental, as well as we're dealing with Section 8. Hold on. Forgot to turn the phone off. So here we go. We right here, and thank T and Smiling. They're smiling right here, and T is out of town. But we're here at the National Harbor Barbershop. Carissa, we're here with Stephanie Perry.
Yeah.
And she's doing TikTok Live, and Carissa's doing Facebook Live. And Carissa, tell us a little bit about Carissa Span.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Welcome. Hello, everybody. Hello in social media world. We're live on Facebook. We're live on TikTok. I'm Carissa Span, the founder of Fresh Start Housing Services, landlord and tenant expert. I'm excited to be here today to join in, have this conversation about housing, especially in the District of Columbia. I've been in the housing space, residential housing, for a little over 2 decades, working in various roles, capacities, but definitely specializing in affordable housing. So, Reverend Motley, you mentioned Section 8, low-income housing, tax credit. I'm also a property management educator. I've been teaching property management for a couple of local universities in the DC metropolitan area. So I'm excited to weigh in this conversation today, cutting conversations here at the Washington National Harbor Barbershop.
Amen. Thank you. And so the first question that I would have, and then we'll go to Stephanie, but what seems to be the problem with housing in the District of Columbia that we can't find more housing for low and moderate income people?
Well, I think the best way to answer that is to just note that the answer is in the question. DC is one of the most expensive places to live. And so it's a challenge because rents are high, right? Everything is high in the District of Columbia. And so when we think about affordable housing, we first have to understand who determines what is affordable, and affordable to who, right? And so housing in the District of Columbia is high in and of itself. But then you have low-income worker or people who may not have income, right? So, for instance, there are programs, housing programs such as the Section 8 voucher program, right? You have rapid rehousing, which is a short-term housing subsidy. And I'm finding now that more landlords are providing some housing, but maybe not acceptable housing, right? So you have maybe new developers, they'll come in, and we talk about inclusionary zoning, right, a little bit. So you have housing developers coming in, they're creating blocks of new housing space. The apartments, let's say for the efficiency, could range from 2 to 5,000, right? Who can afford that?
Right.
You have low income people, they can't afford it.
Right.
Or when they do get these vouchers, they get housing assistance to get into these places, they're about this big.
Right.
And then they may not meet housing requirements. Or you may have developers, and this is one of the things that I've seen recently, where you have developers who will come in and say, okay, DC government, we'll rent to people who are low income, who are in these housing programs. But the rent, you have to approve our requested rent amount of $4,000. When they know that the program is only going to approve $2,000. Right? And so these are some of the discouraging business practices that are going on.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things where we have to look at and have those hard conversations. How can housing really become affordable? What can we do to help people who don't have that income? Maybe they don't have a housing program that they can participate in because the waiting list is so long, right? They're there are programs available, but then sometimes these individuals, they run into red tape trying to find the programs, signing up for the programs, getting on a waiting list, and then when they do get the housing, to get that assistance to help them get from here to leasing up into a rental place. And so the conversation has to really be, I believe, a lot deeper than that. I don't think that we're going to see a difference in terms of the price, the rent amount in DC anytime soon. It's not going to change. So then the questions we have to ask ourselves, how do we help individuals participating in programs or not, elderly, disabled? How do we help them get the housing resources and the housing stock? And so those are the questions that we have to look at to provide more programs for individuals in that category. Is it possible, right? And so I know that we've had prior conversations, speaking with city council members about the need. But the conversation, when does it go from conversation to reality? And so I think that should be our angle. That should be the goal, the driving goal for 2025. We've been talking for a long time.
Oh yeah.
It's time up for talking.
Right.
Talk is cheap. Talk ain't housing people. So where do we go? So those are the conversations that we have to look at.
Well, let me ask you a question. My goddaughter lives in an apartment in DC, and she needed to get into something real fast, and so they told her, okay, well, you can make, we'll let you get in. She's paying her monthly rent plus the $1,300 that she needed to pay, for the security deposit in the first month. I'm like, I kind of feel like she should have had some education before she did that. And that, I'm retired DC government, and when I was working years ago, when they were giving out the housing certificates, and they told people you can use it anywhere but in DC. So, it's to tell somebody something like that is not promoting you to stay in DC, but to move as far away as possible, but also just to educate them to the fact of, hey, this is what I can do, this is what I can get in DC. And I kind of feel like with my goddaughter, no one has educated her. So, would you be able to help someone like her?
Great question, and absolutely. So one of the things that I do is I educate landlords, I educate tenants. So for individuals who need assistance, they can always reach out to me on social media. My email address, I can provide that. But education is so important. And so one of the things that I do is when I'm having conversations with tenants, Reverend Motley, I don't know if you know this, but I created like this whole, it's a housing workbook to help tenants, right, to educate them on housing, the different programs, the security deposit, what they can expect, what to look for in a landlord, how to identify quality landlords, the importance of, even before they move into the property, they're just looking at maybe where they want to live, how to inspect it, and to ask those questions if they see something, to say something. But education is so important, but here's the thing, sometimes you have property managers, you have landlords, you have housing providers, they're not educators, right? Maybe they just own the property, or maybe they're just managing it for somebody else. Do they really have the heart? Do they have the time? Do they have the patience to do that? They may not. And so we hear and we learn of situations such as with your goddaughter, where if she had the education, she could have made a better decision.
Right. I feel she could have, and young people, my daughter used to always say, well, Mom, you didn't teach me everything. Well, I don't know everything to be able to teach everything. And especially about housing, because, the home ownership journey is a journey.
It is a journey.
Okay, I know when I got mine 26 years ago, it took 2 years. And it was some highs, some lows, whole bunch of hurdles and all that stuff. But they don't tell you about that.
That's true.
They don't tell you about it. Like when you get ready to go to the settlement table, oh, by the way, you have to come up with another $200, $2,000 or for such and such. And it doesn't, that's just defeating the purpose of home ownership. And some people, because I know with myself, I was getting it with my then husband. And he, as usual, always wanted to give up on everything.
Okay.
So when it was like, okay, you need to do such and such, he was, oh, forget the process. And that's the thing, when you're going through that, I had patience. He didn't. So I had to be the one to coach him. And my realtor wasn't even thinking about that, because the only thing she was thinking about was the sale. And understanding, and just like even now, I was talking to my realtor yesterday, and I got an email from my mortgage company, and they said, oh, by the way, we're going up $100. Wow. Okay, and then they talk about the reserve fund. Now I live in an HOA. We have a reserve fund. That's in case you have a shortfall.
Right.
Okay, so I understand that part. But I never had a reserve fund before with my mortgage, but now I do. And my MIP, nobody talks to you about that. Like, okay, can I get rid of it? What's waiting to get rid of it? Do I, so explaining all the details. Because I called and the guy was like, I said, well, what is this? What is hazardous insurance? Is that my homeowner's insurance? Oh, hazardous insurance is hazardous insurance. And I'm like, dude, okay, now you're pissing me off. Okay. I'm not stupid. I asked you that question. So my real question is like, how do we explain it to people? I don't want to say dumbify, but where I worked at, we had to recognize the educational level of folks in DC. And there are some people that just have a third grade education, understanding of what this word is and what this is. So do you take that time to explain everything to them? And this is the way how you need to look at it, or,
So that's a good question. I think that it depends on the individual, because we don't know what people don't know. Right? And so that's one of the most important things for people to understand. Like, listen, if you don't know, ask questions.
Right.
So for me, as a housing professional and a housing provider, I may not know that an applicant who wants to rent a property from me may not understand the process.
Right.
So sometimes it's just about having those conversations. Hey, thank you for your interest in renting this, the barbershop. Have you ever rented a place like this before? When are you planning to move? What are you looking for? What are some things that are important to you? See, for me, I'm trained to ask those questions, but I'll do it in a way, I'm just having a conversation, right? Like, what do you need in a rental property? What is your budget? And does your budget include the rent plus utilities, or just the rent? Because sometimes they say, oh, well, I want a place and the most I'm willing to pay is $1,500. And that's all they can afford to pay. It's $1,500. That includes the rent plus utilities. Okay, so now let's have a conversation. Because if you have to pay rent, you have to pay electric, you have to pay gas, you have to pay water, right? Now we have to look at what those costs are going to be. So that's going to be on top of that rent. So now maybe you can't afford a place that's $1,500. Maybe all you can afford is something that's in the range of $1,200. So it's having those conversations, but sometimes people don't know what to ask.
Let me take a break right now. We want to give a shout out to our sponsors. So we want to thank the National Harbor Barbershop, Tea and Smiling. We want to thank the retirees for accountability. The First Friday Group, the Million Man Vote, Black Men for Democracy, Concerned Residents Against Violence. That's CRAVE. We want to thank them so much for this opportunity. We also want to say to LaJoy Law, she has a special to be here at the barbershop. $10 for every student that comes in They get a cut for a regular cut, $10 off. I mean, no, wait a minute, hold up. They get a regular cut, yeah, $10, and then they get a $10 off any designer cut. I think that's how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to thank again the Barbershop and all of our sponsors. So let's go back to the conversation again,
Okay.
Carissa. So when you look at the issue of housing in the District of Columbia, and we're looking at, they say that we got more now people in DC now. We got over 700,000.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at housing, can we say what populations are specialized housing? Like, for example, police departments, police officers, teachers. What about medical professionals?
Mm-hmm.
What about the young people that are out doing the anti-violence interrupters and all them? Do we have housing for them?
Oh, and also, I'm sorry, can you add DC government workers? Because they want to promote DC government workers to live in DC.
Yeah.
Now, there are the thing about the District of Columbia is that there are a lot of pots of money.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, and at this time during this conversation, there's not one central place that people can go to access those different programs, right? So you have programs here, you have programs there, but you don't have one hub, if you will, you know, for a whole melting pot or mixing pot of services for those in law enforcement, those who are teachers, unless what I know of are the veterans, right? There are vouchers for veterans. So it's hard right now, and I think that's one of the things that the district can capitalize off of.
Right.
Just making sure that there's one central place. So for individuals who are in that category, they're looking for housing, they know where to go, right? So I don't personally know of any one place that can provide that information.
So what would that be like under what Department of Housing, or would it be under?
It would not be DC Housing Authority. It would be perhaps, let me think here, Department of Housing and Community Development.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Luther King.
Yeah, it could go in there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then, but also, if you have an experienced realtor, would they be able to point you in the right direction for the different programs that they have out here? Because I know it's a plethora of them. I know when I worked for DC government, they were trying, the union, at being union workers, they were giving people $20,000 to purchase, $25,000 purchase.
Yeah, but that's homeownership.
Mm-hmm.
But homeownership is different from renting.
Yeah.
So there are homeownership programs. Yeah, you have the HPAC program. There are a lot of services, DC government workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's for homeownership.
Okay. But renting.
So ask the question in terms of the difference between home ownership, rental. What about co-op?
Oh,
What
yeah.
was the difference with the co-op?
Honestly, Rev, I haven't done a lot with co-ops,
Okay.
so I can't weigh in on that conversation, unfortunately, because I have not dealt with co-ops.
Okay. But I think we have some here in the district.
We do.
And what about what do they call it? The land trust. Are you familiar with
I
that?
am not.
Okay. You know about the land trust?
I heard about it, but it's years. I gotta look up on that again because I remember hearing about it. Land trust.
It's a non-profit organized by the community
Okay.
with community leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you are sponsored by a developer
Okay.
that is willing to participate in something like that. So in DC, right here in Southeast, we got the Douglas Community Land Trust.
Okay.
And guess who is over there?
Oh.
Minister Von Perry
Okay.
is over there. You need
Okay.
to meet with him. You
Yeah.
see with
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. Yeah.
and reach out to him because he's got that under that building bridges thing,
Okay,
the 11th
Okay.
Street Bridge.
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
they got that land trust piece.
okay,
And it's supposed to be affordable in perpetuity. And so anybody that comes in there, it goes from household to household. So that, you know, like right now, if somebody is in Section 8 or in some type of other kind of subsidized, and then that person passes away, it stops. It doesn't transfer to the family. But the land trust, it goes. If the person passes, it goes right to the family. It's the land trust in perpetuity.
That's like New York. I know. I had family up in Harlem.
They do that.
They do that up in there.
Yeah.
For about he's been living there for like 100 years.
See you later, bro.
Bye.
All right, take care now.
all right.
We'll show it known. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very informative. We'll show it known.
Yeah.
All right now.
So, if anything happens to him, his kids can move in. The rent is not going to go up.
So that's under the land trust?
Yes.
Land trust.
Okay, okay.
And I was like, when he told me that, I was like, well, because you know, if you think DC is high, New York
Oh,
Yeah, I had family.
is even worse. It's even worse. Because a friend of mine, he has a house. He has a brownstone in Harlem, and they were trying to get him to sell for. They went over $1 million.
I'm sure.
Oh, but that thing,
I'm sure.
that thing is gorgeous. Okay, it is gorgeous.
I know it is.
Yeah. So do you do like housing fairs? You know, where you allow people in the community come out, get the information, come on and learn about what you need to know about renting, about what your rights are, how to recognize a slumlord. Because that's a big one up in the area.
Listen, that's a whole conversation in and of itself right there.
Because I know the AG, well, Carl, he sued the guy over there on East Capitol before he left.
Right.
And I think Brian is working on another
He's
job.
doing, he just, my swab just sued somebody.
Yeah.
Dealing with housing.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it's unfortunately, you know, and like where my goddaughter lives, her landlord, they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to take care of this, we're going to take care of that, and they don't.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
So it's like, and she's young, so she's naive to a lot of it, and people take advantage of that so much because she is so young. But you know, I really would like to get your number and stuff to be able to talk to her and give her more insight on what she needs to know about. Okay, I had to have a conversation with her, and I told her, look, you're adulting now. You have to learn all this stuff. Okay, I'm 62, I'm still adulting and still trying to learn as much as you can. You know? And because you'll never know everything.
Right, that's true.
You will never, especially about house and the opportunities that are out here. Because my mother used to always tease me and say, oh yeah, you moved to Maryland because Maryland is the promised land. I said, no, I moved to Maryland because I want to own my dirt.
That part.
Okay.
That part.
That is
Wait,
so.
hold on. What do you mean by, okay, so DC can't own the dirt?
Nope.
No, not this.
Tell me why that's,
But we can go back to that, but let me go back to your question. So you asked if I facilitate workshops. I have not, in 2025 I am.
Okay, good.
So I partner with Landlord Tenant Solutions, and one of the things that we do is provide tenant education.
Okay.
Because we want them to be educated, we want tenants, prospective tenants to be informed. I think when it comes to slum landlords, that's a pet peeve of mine. Like, I hate more than anything, and I know hate is a strong word.
Yes, it is.
But I hate more than anything slumlords. Right?
Okay.
So one of the things that I do, and I failed to mention, you didn't even remind me. So every Monday, I'm live on Facebook, I'm live on LinkedIn, I'm live on YouTube. You can find me on YouTube at Landlord Life, life is spelled with a Y. But every week, is a different topic.
Okay.
I'm educating tenants, I'm educating landlords, I'm reminding tenants, listen, you have rights. Because some people don't know.
Right.
They don't know what to look for. They don't know how to spot a slumlord. So I get people who tune in, my viewers, they comment my YouTube channel, they send me emails like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with in my apartment or my house. This is what my landlord did. I had a young lady who reached out to me recently. She sent me pictures. So she just moved into a house in DC, and she kept hearing something. She told the landlord, something is in here, I think it's a mouse. Turned out the lady had rats. Bigger than her cat. So she sent me pictures where in the laundry room, it was a big hole that was stuffed with something. The landlord didn't even complete the repair, seal the wall up, had it painted or any of that. So they just rented the house as it was. And so, I mean, the stories, as we know, go on and on and on. Like conditions that tenants live in. And so, yes, to answer your question, in 2025, I will be facilitating in-person as well as virtual workshops, just educating people because there are a lot of things happening that people don't know. And the unfortunate part about it is that slumlords, they'll do it. They'll continue to do it because if tenants don't recognize their rights, they know that, okay, well, I'm just keep doing it because they don't know. And they just accept any old thing. Right? Slumlords, we know they want to collect money at the beginning of the month, not make repairs. But it's a new day. Because tenants have rights, tenants can sue landlords. One of the things I said last year and earlier this year, I talk about it every week. We're going to see more lawsuits. Filed against landlords by tenants.
But aren't, as a landlord, I know in Maryland, okay, where I live in my development, we have an HOA. And if a person, a homeowner, wants to rent their house out, they have to get that approved by the county. Does DC have to go through the same thing?
Yeah, DC, a lot of people don't.
That's why that's the problem in my community because I'm going to sponsor an amendment to our bylaws that we need to have a limit on how many homes can be rented out. We have 252 homes.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, we need to figure out if we want to do 1/4 or whatever of the in there, because when you have too many renters, don't take care of a home the way how the homeowner does. Okay, and then a lot of people, when they come from being renters, they are immature and like, well, I didn't have to do that where I lived before, but you have to do it here because this is your home.
Right.
So that is so important. You remember that housing organization? They help people get houses. Not NACA. It was that black chick. The black chick. She was big too.
It was that shit.
I want to say it started with an L.
When I purchased my home, I used her.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. It was up on like Riggs Road.
And then she moved to Rhode Island Avenue into that big building. But she's not there anymore.
No.
Marsha.
Oh, that's her.
What's the name of the program? I can't remember the name of the program.
Because she graduated from Anacostia High School. Yeah.
What happened to her?
She's still around.
She's still around?
She does the national stuff.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Because
I forgot the name of the program.
because they helped a lot of people.
They did.
And like with me, NACA helped me. Well, they tried. Remember the 2008, 2009 house crash?
Yep.
And
I actually worked for NACA years ago.
You did?
I think in 2018 or 19. No, earlier than that.
Because that crash.
2009.
Okay, right when the crash was. And do you remember when they had that big thing at the stadium, the convention center downtown?
Yep.
It was horrible, but we were sleeping in chairs. We didn't want to lose our space because there were so many people down there trying to save their home. But the banks were atrocious because like I had been there and I negotiated with Bank of America and I got my mortgage down to where it was affordable. But then guess what? council I talked to, they quit. Moving on, that plan went out the window. Here come the next one,
Yep.
and here come that.
Yep.
5 times I had to go through that. 5 times. And by the grace of God, I was able to save my home. And now this is the thing. They said, okay, you owe $500,000 on your home. My house wasn't even worth that much. So then they knocked it down and they forgave me for $249,000. So
How much?
$249. And that they don't like to do that.
Right.
Because that's money that, but guess what? They can write it off.
Oh, yeah.
They write it off.
They do
They
that.
win in the end.
But go back to, I want to go back to this question though, because you raised it in terms of ownership. So, Stephanie was saying that she didn't go to DC because she went to Maryland so she could own the land. So, what about DC? So, are the people that own property in DC, they don't own land?
Not in DC.
Why not?
You'll never own your land in DC, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people go to Maryland.
So then let's look at that. Let's do this. So then if DC, the people can't own the land, then if there's any problems with the land, who's responsible for the land?
Listen, the federal government owns the land in DC.
But the homeowner.
But if I let's say for example, you remember those people on Rhode Island Avenue had problems with the infrastructure? And the people,
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
and the people on Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast had an erosion issue. That's land, isn't it?
What community is that?
The one in Rhode Island Avenue was over there where the dogs died.
Is that considered?
Oh, yeah.
Was that
Yeah.
Petworth?
No, that's
No,
not Petworth.
that's the Northeast.
You talking about where that dog,
The
the
dog
dog
kennel,
facility?
yeah.
Yeah,
They had, and that was, and then on Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast, they had an erosion issue. One of the ANC people,
It
Roscoe
was
Grant.
right there,
He
near
helped
a
us.
bridge or something.
Yeah. So when there's a land problem with a home ownership in DC, who's responsible for the land?
Isn't it when you purchase your home, you're given from anything that's okay? Because the sidewalk is DC government. So from ever where that property line is to your house and all the way to the back, that's the homeowner's responsibility. Even though the dirt is not theirs, okay? It is the state. Well, I mean that's the entity DC says that the homeowner is responsible for that.
So look at the situation that happened on Calvert Street over here.
What happened?
They had, so back in the day when they moved all that dirt from Anacostia Metro Station, when they were digging that dirt out of there, and they started putting that dirt in Southeast in different locations. Some of the dirt went up to Our Lady Perpetual Health. Some of the dirt went off of Morris Road and up on that hill. So then later on, fast forward, they start building houses on that Calvert Dexter Terrace area where they had put that dirt, and they built the houses. And then the people, they got money from the government for purchase. The DACD was part of it. They took the residents through an exercise to make sure they were the people had inspections and all that stuff was done. Fast forward a year later, people see cracks in the foundation.
Was that on the news recently?
Yes. So my question then is, and so now they go to the court. Court finds the District of Columbia culpable, but then the DC Council says they're not
They're not guilty, they're not responsible.
But then my question is to go back to the ownership of the land. Who's responsible? Who owns the land? See, people need to flush that stuff out.
Yeah.
Because those people should not have been held accountable for
That's
that,
true.
responsible for that.
That's
that
true.
Well-
they should not have.
They should not have. I agree.
Here's the thing again, education.
Education, there you go right there.
Education.
Yeah.
Because see, here's the thing, DC, DC land is 55% federal. 55% of the land in DC is owned by the federal government.
Yep.
And then the upper 45, who owns that?
DC?
DC,
DC.
not the owners.
Yes.
DC government
DC government,
owns, and the federal government owns.
55.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
But no person in the
Absolutely
district
not.
owns
Absolutely
property.
not.
See, look, that's what I'm talking about. This stuff, people need to understand, like you say, know the law, know the policy.
But see, here's the thing though. I'm an advocate with that because when it comes to my coins, I need to know who, what, when. I'm not accepting that. No. Just like I'm getting ready to contact my mortgage company now and say, what the sugar honey iced tea is this people? Okay, so I said, they put a reserve up there. I said, well, don't ask for it last year. And if you don't use it, do I get my money back?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to tell you
They
that.
don't tell you that.
No, until somebody raises a ruckus.
Yep.
And that's what happens. Somebody has to raise a ruckus to get their attention that this is what's going on. And some people don't want to do, it pissed me off when I saw this on TikTok. This white woman wouldn't let him into the building and said, well, you don't live here. He said, yes, I do. And she said, well, I need to see your keys. She was a Karen.
I saw that.
Yeah. And then he said, well, I didn't want to do anything or file any charge. See, that's where the problem
Right.
is. Because you should have filed charge.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
You should have. She violated your rights.
Couldn't be me. That's all I'm
Who you
saying.
telling?
Couldn't be me.
Who is you telling? I'm with you on that. Me and her, oh, no.
Oh, that-
We going to court. Let me tell you, right?
So I live in a building, I'm coming in, I have to show ownership
Right.
to a neighbor?
To somebody who I don't know.
Oh.
You don't ask.
Oh.
You know what? Let me tell you. I have handicap tags.
Uh-huh.
I went to Ocean City about a year ago, and I was staying in a condo, renting a condo. And I said, well, is that handicap spot here in front of your building available? Oh, no, that's just for drop off. You can only stay there for 10 minutes. I said, excuse me? Oh, no, you can't stay there.
Wow.
That's not what the handicap. I said, oh, okay. Attorney General, we need to sue.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, and the thing is like I said, if you don't make a ruckus, because they've been doing that for longer than a minute.
That's true.
Okay?
So-
So you have to exercise your rights.
So
Now-
again, and when you talk about housing and rental and cars, what is the role with, what's your responsibility as a homeowner, a renter, handicap, with
Yep.
cars? What is the car part of your your responsibility?
Is it a designated parking space or is it just parked on the street? Right? So you have to look at those things because if it's a designated parking space, then perhaps.
Yeah, I gotta head on out.
Okay, all right, Stephanie
All right,
Perry, thank you, Stephanie Perry.
Can you give him your number? I know he does. Please give it to me because I
Absolutely.
want to make sure that.
All right, Max. See you
Thank you
later.
so very much.
Absolutely.
I really did.
Yes,
Go
we're
ahead,
not
before you go to the
Yeah.
bathroom.
Yes, I
Take
know.
him outside.
And he's looking.
All
He's looking.
All right, Max, see you later.
My bad.
Y'all have a blessed holiday.
Okay,
Okay,
Steph. Thanks, Steph.
Okay.
So, listen, one of the things that I'm big on is people, in addition to knowing their rights, knowing what the law says, because people will say and do anything. She
Right.
talked about a Karen, right? That's the world in which we live. I mean, that's nothing new.
Right.
It's just that it's more publicized now than what it was before. But in a situation where there's a dispute over a parking space, come on, you kidding me? Like Stephanie, I have a handicap decal. I'm a park where legally I can park. I don't care what anybody got to
Right.
say.
Right.
You want me to move my car, you gotta wait. And if you're my parking spot, then I'm gonna just block you in. So I'm big on action,
Right.
right? I don't subscribe to taking law into my own hands, but when we know what we can do legally, then doesn't matter what somebody has to say about it.
Okay.
Right? I'm not wasting time. I'm not having no conversation about it. I'm not proving that this is my parking spot, or that I live here, or that I own, or whatever. I'm not going through all of that. And a lot of times people feel so compelled because they want to keep the peace, or maybe if I just do this, it'll go away. No, it's not going to go away, because as long as we feed that behavior, it's going to grow.
I know.
What we feed will grow, what we starve will die. So we cannot waste time feeding things that's just going to spiral out of control in a negative way. That's just my feedback on that.
Right. So let's go to these housing programs. So we've got Lydia's house.
Yep.
What does Lydia's house do?
So Lydia's house, that's over there near, what is that?
Right here on Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King.
And Chesapeake.
So Lydia House, I like Lydia House. They provide education. They provide resources. They work a lot with the Black American community. They educate them from start to finish. They find resources for them. They help them with credit, right? And so if we see a lot more of that in our communities, we talked about finding affordable housing. I think that if we had more community partners that invested on that level, then we won't have to have more conversations about not knowing where to find affordable housing, or sending us to other communities that don't represent us, that don't care about us, don't provide resources, right, and will discriminate, right? And so I haven't dealt one-on-one with Lydia's house. I met a young lady who worked there years ago, but I definitely commend the work that they're doing in the community.
Okay.
Definitely commend what they're doing.
What about Nana? Nana is another program that provides services to the community.
Nana, that's in Northwest, right?
Yeah, but I think they made some inroads into Southeast as well.
Okay.
You know, so that's another housing provider for affordable housing.
Yes. I confuse Mana with, what's the name of that organization in Northwest? They're on 17th Street. Housing Counseling Services. I confuse Mana with Housing Counseling Services. Yeah. So Mana, they do a lot as well, helping people with housing resources and understanding their rights as well. And then also with one of the things that I'm starting to see, we're going to see a lot more of, are testers. So a tester is someone who may work for a property management company, they may work for the Equal Rights Center. They'll go out and they'll test landlords. We talked about some landlords getting earlier. So what they'll do is they'll send two people. They're looking for the same style rental, right? So maybe they're looking for a one-bedroom apartment. One might be black, the other might be white, or Asian, or whatever. So they're going to send two people. They're going to have the same script. They're looking for the same type of housing in the same range, the same income. So they're going to say the exact or identical thing. And they're testing landlords. So for instance, I may go as a tester, right? And I'll go with 8 kids. 8 kids that are out of control. I'm not disciplining them. I'm just letting them do whatever. Smiley might go and he's shopped from head to toe. He got a 3-piece suit. He's suited and booted, right? They may not rent to me because at first glance, I got kids, right? They'll rent to him. Our credit is the same. Our income is the same, right? And so what testers would do is they are testing landlords to see, okay, did you not rent to Carissa because she appears to be one way, and yet you rented to him? Now, I'll go in first. They'll send Smiley maybe that afternoon or the day later, right? And if the same apartment is available, but I was denied and they rented to him, then the question is why? And so when these testers are going out, and a lot of people are getting caught up. They're getting caught up because the city recognizes that there are a lot of people who are discriminated, doing underhanded things. And unfortunately, we talked about tenant rights, when tenants or prospects don't know, they just believe that, oh, well, I couldn't get it because whatever. And sometimes these slumlords, they'll make up an excuse, oh, we rented it to someone that was more qualified. Well, when the testers go in, and we both have the same qualification, we both have the same credit score, we both have the same income, how is he more qualified than me? And so they have to answer to that. And so we are going to see, I said it before, and I will say it, I'll keep saying it, we're going to see more lawsuits. We are. And rightfully so, we should. I was reading an article just the other day where a landlord was arrested because they failed to make repairs, they failed to adhere to the housing code, right? They didn't do what they were supposed to do, and they ended up going to jail. You don't hear a lot about this, but it does happen. And a lot of people don't even know that it's possible. But I think that education is definitely key. And so organizations, you talk about Video House, you talk about Manor, they're helping renters understand their rights, to know what to look for, how to prevent from going down that rabbit hole. Because what we don't know can and will hurt us. So we have to be more to educate us.
Let me ask a question about Section 8.
Okay.
A lot of landlords or property owners have some concern that when they bring in a family that has Section 8, that a lot of these families have some issues that need to be addressed. Social issues, educational issues, society issues.
Yep.
And the landlords feel as though they're being taken advantage of because there's no accountability from the housing provider.
Okay.
How do we address situations like that in terms of the landlord and the housing provider? What are those relationships like?
So we have, so when you say the landlord and the housing provider help, I just want to make sure that I understand the question.
Okay. So when I say the housing provider is the one that provides the Section 8 certificate.
Okay, so the housing authority, housing agency.
Okay.
Got it.
And then the landlord or the homeowner owns the property.
Got it.
What's the accountability factors when it comes to both the provider, the housing provider, and the landlord dealing with the tenant?
Okay, so it's a triangle relationship. So you have the housing authority who has a contract with the owner. The housing authority has, when the tenants are given a voucher, that's considered a contract under the family obligations. And then the tenant has a lease with the landlord. That's another contract. So it's considered a triangle, right? So when a tenant gets a voucher from the housing authority say, hey, tenant, congratulations, we're giving you a 3-bedroom voucher, go out and find a place. They rent to you, and so the landlord is responsible for screening all tenants, all prospective tenants, the same way they will with a market tenant. Now, what the housing authority will not do is manage the behavior of the tenant. The housing authority say, well, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, we understand that you guys have issues going on. You got to take that up with your tenant and enforce your lease, and you take the tenant to court. The housing agency don't always provide case management services. And a lot of owners, there are sometimes a lot of owners who don't understand it. It's a disconnect. They think that because the tenant is participating in a housing program, that the housing agency is responsible when things are not going right. It just depends on the housing agency. Because you do have short-term programs like rapid rehousing. Those are local dollars. District government, they'll provide case management services. There are quite a few programs, but The one thing that I will tell owners to do is to ask questions to understand, first of all, what kind of program is it, and if case management services is provided. If not, that owner is on their own with any and all issues that are happening in a household. And they will unfortunately have to take the tenant to court. Now, in situations where the tenant is participating in a housing program where there's a case manager involved, the landlord can reach out to the case manager to say, hey, listen, I'm having an issue with my tenant. I'm trying to make repairs. They're not opening the door to allow me in, or I had a scheduled inspection and they wouldn't allow the inspector to come in. I just want to make sure that the house is okay, right? And so with case management programs, landlords can tend to do a little bit better because there's like a third party intervening. But if it's just a straight voucher program, that help may not be there. And unfortunately, everybody who work in those positions don't have a heart for people. You know, they don't have a heart for what they do. So many, many years ago, and I worked at several housing authorities, right? But many, many years ago, my earlier years, I had a heart. And although it was not my responsibility, I would call the tenant. So if you call me and say, well, Carissa, you're the housing specialist for this tenant and I'm trying to make repairs, they're destroying my property, they got dogs just chewing up the place and pooping everywhere, there are fights going on, the police are being called, my neighbors are calling me constantly, I'm a senior, I don't have time for this, and I just really want to provide housing for this tenant. Me, somebody who does have a heart, I would call the tenant, hey, I received a call from your landlord. They said ABC XYZ. This is just a reminder that these violations of the program, because again, that voucher is a contract. So that means that those tenants are required by law to adhere to the regulations of the program. So if it violates the program, I would remind them, hey, listen, just want to remind you that this is a violation and that you could lose your housing. We don't have a lot of that today. You don't see a lot of that happening. And so now landlords are stuck between a rock and a hard place because they're trying to figure out what the heck am I supposed to do? I can't easily take the tenant to court in DC because the laws are strongly in favor of the tenant. You know, it's like you got to pull teeth and you got to spend thousands of dollars just to go before the judge. And then when you get to the judge, hope and pray that you have all of your ducks in a row. You got your business license, you've been making repairs, you've been documenting all these things, because if not, then you can get to that level thinking that you're going to go before the judge, get a slam dunk, and get a bad tenant out, right? Because there's some outliers, there's some bad players. But you go before the judge, only for the judge to say, oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, we are not able to hear this case because you don't have a renter's license. You don't have a business license to do business. And so there is help for some. And for the owners who don't know, unfortunately, the district has not done, in my opinion, DC has not done enough to help, especially small landlords and owners.
So when a landlord receives a voucher, that landlord should have a business license?
Yes. Before they rent their property to anybody, they should have a business license.
So DC makes sure that the landlord has a business license.
It's kind of hard to enforce something that they don't know. So in other words, if DC government doesn't know that Smiley owns property and is renting it to tenants, they're not going to contact Smiley because they don't know.
But it should be a requirement, though.
It is a requirement.
It is a requirement. You have to provide evidence. In order, so it's like what they say that word, quid pro quo.
Mm-hmm.
You give me the voucher and I give you my license. Mm-hmm. Is that happening?
We're starting to see more landlords, so new landlords that are coming into the program, they're being told, hey, you should have a voucher. I'm sorry, you should have a license, but it's not a requirement to participate in the voucher program. DC Housing Authority is not DC government.
Right.
It's two different entities, and they're not connected. So if I'm renting to the housing authority, and if I don't have a business license, DC Housing Authority, they're not gonna say, okay, well, Carissa, you can't rent until you provide a business license. They're just gonna say, okay, you wanna rent, we're gonna come out, we're gonna make sure that it passes inspection, we're gonna make sure that the rent is affordable according to the regulations of the program, we're gonna make sure that your property fit the requirement of the program so that you can rent to a Section 8 voucher participant. Regardless if I have a business license or not, which is a DC requirement. See, the voucher program, and this is what I tell people, there are different sets of laws. You have federal laws in states, Maryland, whatever. You have federal law, you have state law, and you have local laws. And so landlords who don't understand, they need to know all the laws, different programs on all levels is so important. It's important.
So,
Because they're not always connected.
yeah, they're not connected. We need to get them connected. So that maybe that's a conversation with the, I was hoping to have Robert Whitehead,
Okay,
but I called him, he's out of town.
okay. Probably for the
And
holiday.
it's a holiday, that's what he said, because he was supposed to have here, to come here with you and have that conversation.
Okay.
So that's something that we can continue that conversation.
Absolutely.
Because there's a policy issue, some legislation
Yep.
that we need to be looking at.
Yep.
And you said a whole lot in this little short time. and so I want to also, the person that we were talking about, Marcia Griffin.
Yes, yes, yes.
And Marcia's company, Marcia's what is it, DHF USA. And I forgot what that meant. But Marcia has a national housing
Okay.
and so we want to thank her. You know, Marcia, she's doing some good things. And so, do you have any last? We get ready to close. Thank you, Smiley and T, for this barbershop conversation, cutting in conversation.
Cutting in conversations at the barbershop.
At the barbershop. And so Miss Span, Miss Carissa Span, what do you have last week? What do you have to say?
So before I give my final remarks, I have a question. So I asked a friend this morning who went to get a haircut at 5:30 this morning, and I asked Smiley, I'm gonna ask you this question. Why does it take so long for a haircut? Why do haircuts take about 25 minutes?
Because we give people good service. We ain't trying to rush nobody.
Okay.
We ain't just in this anymore. A lot of people don't like to be rushed.
Uh-huh.
And if you cut the man and cut it right, he gonna come back. A lot of people come don't like to be rushed.
Okay.
Take your time.
Take your time.
So like the guy that was getting his haircut a few minutes ago,
You got a bald head.
he had a bald head. But it didn't take you 2 minutes. Like, it took you a while. He already had a bald head, Smiley. Why it take
He
so
got a
long?
haircut about 15 minutes. Because Russell was talking, and he was listening to what you said. It wasn't that long. You got two guys that got a bald head. A bald head is hard to cut in any kind of head.
Really? I just always wondered why it takes so long to get a
People
haircut.
don't like to rush.
Okay.
Whether you bald or not.
They gonna come back if you don't rush. Don't care if you did the way. They gonna tell you the way. We trying to get customers. We ain't trying to get no quick dollar.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Good
So my last words. This was great. Definitely. I love weighing in on housing conversations. You know, I'm passionate about that. I would say that as we are embarking upon 2025, how important it is for the community to have these honest conversations, to be educated. So whether it's homeownership, rental, just to be that source, right, that people need is important. That's what I'm here for. I know that Stephanie asked a question a little earlier about me doing housing fairs and workshops and stuff like that. And so, like I said, I partner with Landlord Tenant Solutions, great brother Keith Moon, providing these services, and so you're definitely going to hear more about that in 2025
Okay.
because it's needed. I'm here for it.
It's something that you can pull together and get some of these people that are doing this work sitting at the table and really flushing out
Yep.
what's best for our people.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if I can, as I told Stephanie, I will provide my email address.
Right.
And so I just want people to know that it's not just isolated to DC, these topics and the issues that we touched on today. But if they have questions, they can email me. My email address.
What's your email address?
It's going to be info@landlordlife.com. Landlordlife, LYFE. And so that's the best place for people to reach me.
Thank you, Lady Carissa, and Fresh Start Housing Services. And we also want to thank our sponsors, National Harbor Barbershop, number 8 of Maury Street, Southwest Washington. Retirees for Accountability. First Friday Group, The Million Man Vote, Black Men for Democracy, and Concerned Residents Against Violence, Craig. Thank you. See you in the first of the year, the third Saturday in January from 12 to 2. And also LaJoy Law, the Board of Education representative, who is continuing to give discounts to students that come into the barbershop, whether it's on a Saturday or not. Thank you. God bless you. And T, we miss you. Peace out.
Peace.